This week's video is sponsored by Squarespace. Well, good morning everybody. Welcome to another spectacular morning on the equally spectacular coast of northern Spain. New location. We seem to be going to new locations every morning and every evening. We've repeated a couple, but on the whole we just keep going to new areas. And I mean, it's been great. It's spectacular to come to new areas, but it takes a while to kind of figure out, well, what's to photograph and what am I looking at and what do I want to start with first. So Alistair and the group have gone down to the other end of this beach here, and there's a sea stack down at the end. The tide is slowly working its way out, but I've decided to come up to the other end, just around the corner here. There is a sea stack right there, but the tide is going out, so it looks a little bit busy to me. But what I do love are the patterns and the colors in these cliffs, just spectacular. Now I think it's gonna be a while before the sun hits this cliff, but I'm concentrating on the different colors in here. So I'll just show you what I'm talking about here. So as you can see, we have all these different layers and different colors of rock. So I'm in the process of trying to compose something out of this little alcove here. The one part that I'm not sure whether to include or not is this tuft of grass up here. I'm having trouble getting it out of the frame, and when I do have it in the frame, it's kind of stuffed in the corner. Doesn't look quite right, so I'm not quite sure what to do with it. I might try and use a different format, maybe square, but by doing that, then I'm eliminating some of this top part here, which I quite like. So yeah, it's a bit tricky. The other option might be to try and get a little bit closer with a wider lens. That might be an option. There's a couple of little boulders or little rocks down here that I kind of like in the foreground, just to break it up a little bit with this pristine sand. And then down, you can't really quite see it from here, but just over here on the other side, they're kind of these layered corners. The rock is just a deep rust color. So I would imagine if the sun hits that, it will just, oh, it'll be so vibrant. Anyway, that's what I'm starting off with this morning. And as far as lenses go, right now I'm using the 45 to 100. I've backed off a little bit, but as I said, I might slap on the 20 to 35 and just get a little bit closer and see what that does. So as soon as I've taken a shot of that, I'll post it, and then I'll move on to something else down the cliff here. Well, it's always nice to get one image in the bag to get the creative juices flowing. I always find that once I've got one going, then you start to look for other things. And usually the first image of the day is definitely not my best, but now that I've seen these rock patterns, I'm really starting to look for other patterns in the rocks and little scenes that I quite like, arrangements of rocks. And I found a pretty nice scene here. It has some beautiful colors in it. And the boulders on the ground here, I like the arrangement, especially this big one here. It looks like it's almost like a hamburger. It's got a slab of rock, and then there's some broken rock in between, slightly different color, and then another slab underneath. So I've put that in the foreground, and then we have this beautiful shaped cliff here with some nice red colors in there, and there's a little bit of yellow in there. So just overall, just a really pleasant scene to look at. Now then, when it comes to focal length, I've decided to put on a 20 to 35, and the neat thing about the 20 to 35 or wide angles is that you can get in really close to your foreground to really emphasize it if that's what you want to do, or you can back off just a little bit just to de-emphasize it. So let me put this camera down and I'll show you really quickly what I mean with the video recorder on this camera. Okay, now this is 16 by 9, so it's not going to be quite the same, but it'll give you a good idea. So say I really wanted to emphasize this rock here. Right now I've got it at 20 millimeters. So what I would do is I'd get in close like this, and you can see how emphasized that is and how far back the cliff is. Now if I want to perhaps have a better relationship between the foreground and the background without emphasizing the rock too much, then you might want to just back off a little bit and use a slightly longer focal length. So why don't we do that? I'll slowly zoom in but back up, like say something like that, and now all of a sudden you can see that the foreground rock is more or less the same size, but because we've zoomed in, we've brought that relationship between the foreground and the background a little bit closer together. So that's something that you should really think about when you're using a wide angle is, well, you know, I mean, it's great to have a foreground, but does it really play an important part, and does it really enhance the whole scene? I mean, just sticking a rock in the foreground just because you can doesn't mean to say it's going to work or it's going to make the photograph any stronger. So my recommendation is just to really think about these things and think about that relationship. Now with this composition, what I ended up doing, I think I went about halfway. I really wanted these two rocks in here as well. To my eye, they just give it a bit more balance. So I made sure I didn't cut those off, or this one here. I didn't want too much of this one here because it's quite bright. The only thing I wasn't sure about was this cleft here. I'm not sure about that, but that's kind of the composition I had. Something something like that. Something else that you might want to think about when you're photographing a subject like this is not to give up on just one angle. And what I mean by that is, you know, once you've taken one photograph, don't just go on to something else. It's a good idea to just keep moving around and looking for other compositions, because you never know, sometimes you might find something slightly better or just a nicer composition. As in this case, I found another composition. Now I don't know as if it's any better, but it's certainly different, but it's kind of on the same theme. We have some beautiful boulders in the foreground, wonderful colors, and then these sweeping lines of the layers in the cliff here with all the colors. It's just stunning, and it's just a nice study in lines and shapes, especially in the boulders here. So just you know, just keep that in mind. And sometimes moving an inch either way can make a huge difference as well. So if you're not sure about a composition, what I usually try to do for myself is look at all the elements and try to figure out before I take the photograph, well, what is it about that scene that I really like, and then zero in on that and try to eliminate anything that doesn't really go with that theme that you've made up in your head there. So in this case, I really love the curve of this cliff, so that's an important element. Some of these boulders are quite bright, so I've made sure that I've either included the whole boulder so it's not on the edge of the frame, or if it is a distraction, then just eliminate it, like compose it so it's not in the frame. And yeah, I'll show you what I've come up with here, and then you guys can decide which one you prefer, either the first photograph or this one.
And this is the final resting place. Oh, no, he's awake.
Can't get up. No, man. Once again, I'd like to thank Squarespace for supporting my channel and sponsoring this week's video. One of my favorite features of a Squarespace website is the ability to quickly and efficiently update a gallery or page either from a desktop computer or while on the fly using the Squarespace app from my mobile device. Loading multiple images onto a page is quick and offers the ability to change a design or page quickly and elegantly without any coding knowledge. Want to sell your products? No problem. Setting up shop is also quick and intuitive. Sound interesting? Why not head over to squarespace.com and try it for free? And if you like what you find, use the code AdamGibbs for 10% off your first purchase. Okay, we seem to be on a theme today, rock patterns. And we've come out to a new area, and I have to be honest, these rock patterns put the last location to shame. The patterns here are just absolutely stunning, mostly close-ups, but I'll just show you really quickly what we're looking at here. Just beautiful, really beautiful. So as you can see, just the wonderful colors and striations throughout these rocks. The possibilities are really endless. So this is one section here, and I was just down here photographing this line of rock here. Now the only problem with this location is the tide's coming in, and I'm a little bit worried that we're going to get cut off from this area. So I'm going to rush around as fast as I can and take as many shots as I can. You can see our group is here enjoying all of the patterns, and there's some actually absolutely stunning scenery here as well, with the cliffs over to my right and sea stacks over to my left. So I think we have everything we need here. We just need a tide that doesn't come in too far, otherwise it's going to be it's going to kind of shorten my the potential of getting these pattern shots. Anyway, just an amazing location. have fallen asleep on the job.